when will we get justice? Oh, when will we get justice? Oh, no, they don't want it, ooh. No, they don't want to see no justice, they don't want it, ooh. No, they don't want to see no justice, they don't want it, ooh. No, they don't want to see no justice, they don't want it, ooh. They just want to feed destruction in the black and blue. Trying to shackle you, throw you in the orange shoe. I can't even watch the news, watch them misinform you. The police at the fucking food, this shit ain't never cordial. No justice or no peace, my people open up the portal. Every single day since made the people out your marching. We don't fight for smoke, we want the freedom with no marches. Why is your submissive not convicted? It's disheartening. Bring your rubber bullets and your tear gas, we still marching. Got my brother PTTG and he still marching. Got my girl Mariah leading traffic out here marching. Catch my homie Alice rolling ready out here marching. Yeah, I see you, Jackie, with a Gabby out here marching. With a David Boy and with a bro stuff out here marching. The revolution, family freedom fighting in the marches. The revolution lives on Blood Lives Matter, don't ignore me. Our people out here dying, just another break is we get justice? Oh, when will we get justice? No, they don't want it, ooh. No, they don't want to see no justice, they don't want it, ooh. And they don't want to see no justice, they don't want it, ooh. And they don't want to see no justice, they don't want it, ooh. No, they don't want to see no justice. We need allies on the front line. We've been learning for this moment, so it's crunch time. I'm talking time and time, staying truth up in these lines. They forming riot lines, looking at the police cry. It's no more love for the big and hope the piggies die. They like to cover all their fuck-ups, then they feed you lies. How they shoot you when you sleeping in the bed you lie. They'd rather see you lying there than see you saving lives. I had to kick it so fuck for all the freedom fighters. It's for the ones who tie the hashtags and them candle lighters. I'm from Milwaukee, but it's looking like the Carolinas. Traffic in them caravans. In the streets is where you find us. Yeah. Take it to the streets to fund the police. No justice, no peace. Yeah, take it to the streets to fund the police. No justice, no peace. Yeah, when will we get justice? Oh, when will we get justice? Oh, no, they don't want it, ooh. No, they don't want to see no justice, they don't want it, ooh. No, they don't want to see no justice, they don't want it, ooh. No, they don't want to see no justice, they don't want it, ooh. They just want to be destruction in the black. Black lives matter. Black women matter. Protect black women, protect black children. Protect yourselves. Fuck 12.
All right, what is up? What is up, everybody? Make sure the sound is good for everyone. You guys can comment that the sound is good. Trying something a little different tonight, so bear with me. All right, I just have one more thing to set up. All right, boss says. When did we lose our live chat? There it is. April. All right, sorry. Trying to do something a little different. Okay. Oh, technology. All right, we'll just give this about a minute. Let's try to get some more people jumping on here. Please make sure you guys like the stream, hit that thumbs up. Primarily operating this on YouTube. I did share it out to Facebook, so some of you might be watching on Facebook. Kind of rather have everybody go to YouTube, honestly. But please make sure you guys like the stream, share it out everywhere, every group, friends. Let's try to get as many eyes on this as possible. If you guys are watching on Facebook and you do share this out, please kind of be mindful about where it's going. If it gets too crazy on Facebook, I'll be cutting that feed, and you'll have to come over to YouTube anyway. What's up, April? Welcome back to everybody. While we're just giving this a minute, how many that are watching tuned in yesterday for episode 1, or at least went back and watched it? Oh man, the stalker already. Hope you're not going to be reading from a script tonight. Well, I guess I am. Every night. This is serious business. So for those of you that don't know, I have a stalker, several stalkers that text me consistently on my other phone. And they like to chime in via spoof numbers, fake text numbers, which is fitting for the topic of tonight in episode 2. Lame. Well, oh well. Sorry to disappoint you. You don't get the Kevin rant. All right. We'll get started. I am reading from a script tonight. Again, there's a lot to cover. I don't want to miss anything. And it's a little different than kind of how we normally do things. What's up, Breezy? All right, now we can start. Breezy's here. So good evening, everyone, again. Welcome back to the Never Stop Media platform. We call it Never.Stop.Voices here on the YouTube channel. And we're in episode 2 of the Wauwatosa Police Department Martin Luther King Parties. If you did miss episode 1, it is up on our channel. I do encourage everybody to go back and watch it. Remember to please like the stream, share it out, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Remember, you can also sign up for memberships. It's a monthly fee, and that gets you some access to exclusive content, first access to videos that we put up before the general public gets to see it. And then on YouTube, in the little chat bar section, you can send in little super chats. Those help support the platform and all the work that we do here. Again, we are not sponsored by corporate media. We do not get weekly paychecks. So it's a struggle sometimes. But we are viewer donation based, and the large majority of what we do here relies heavily on you guys. Any contributions that come in, a lot of that goes towards operating the company daily, but also the cost of open records requests. Sometimes we have to sue departments to get records when they want to play silly games, attorney's fees, things like that. So that's what all that stuff goes to. Just give you guys a little info about that. Again, just to kind of lay some ground rules, you'll see this scrolling at the bottom of the bottom of the screen. But keep the chat respectful. Never Stop Media does not allow threats, harassment, talking of other streamers, or shared links. Threats will be reported to authorities. No discussion of politics. No discussion of COVID. Bullying of any kind isn't allowed. Insults, racist, or degrading comments will not be tolerated. We reserve the right to delete comments or ban individuals for not following platform guidelines. And since there are some other current events going on, please no talking about the Russia-Ukraine war. Those comments are all going to be deleted. It's obviously very tragic what's going on out there for everybody involved. My position, though, I'm not going to sit here for 2 years fighting white nationalists and racists and scumbags just to go feel sorry for more white nationalist racists that are blocking Africans from exiting the country. We're not going to support that here. So just, please don't comment anything about the war situation. You can go on somebody else's stream and feel sorry for those people. So there's a lot to discuss tonight. So let's just kind of jump right into it. Yesterday, we left off with the names of the 13 officers who were suspended for their participation in the MLK parties. We spoke a little bit about what the MLK parties were, but let's get into some more details so you have a full understanding of why this was such a major controversy. So I am going to kind of preface this for those of you that are unaware. You might feel some type of way about this, and I hope you do. And I hope for everybody, this makes everybody uncomfortable, because this stuff really happens, and it happened and continues to happen. We talked about the Black Plague and Black arrests in Wauwatosa. So when it comes to the MLK parties, the flyers that were sent out were pictures of Black individuals that were arrested and booked into the Wauwatosa Police Department. Verbatim text on one of the flyers stated, "The hunting of deer, rabbits, and other traditional game will not be permitted in the state during the 1989-1990 season. However, the governor has provided by special decree a substitute animal to be hunted so that the state will not lose license revenues and hunters will not lose their skills in the woods. There will be an open season on blacks." It also made derogatory comments about Puerto Ricans as well as Jamaicans. Another flyer distributed read, "Official run-in N-word target," alongside a caricature image of a Black man running away. The officers would rent a school bus, dress up how Black men dressed back in that time. They would wear black masks or paint their faces black, wear black afro wigs, and they would go to a local swimming pool at Hoyt Park to party and drink, and then head to the host house, John Bolzocevic. Confederate flags and KKK paraphernalia were on display. Fried chicken and watermelon were served. And the officers would wear name tags with stereotypical obscure Black male names. In the years leading up to the MLK parties being exposed and after, John Cutts exposes these parties, and he's getting harassed and threatened by the officers. These threats are going to add to some of the officers' suspensions. I want to pull up an image. There's going to be a lot of things that we're displaying tonight. So once again, it is probably beneficial if you watch this on a computer. Just wait for this to pop up. No, there's a little bit of delay between some of the... Okay, there we go. So this is an article that was written in the Wauwatosa News Times, I believe it was. Mary Hone is the journalist. I did speak with Mary on the phone. It was kind of interesting getting into contact with some of these people that were around back in the day, especially the journalists. And it was an interesting point with talking to her where she was extremely excited that this was being talked about again. She had felt that there was not enough attention brought on this back in the late 80s, early 90s. And they could only go so far into what they were writing about, how things were written, and could only get access to so much information. So she was ecstatic that this was now being talked about and given a fresh look by other journalists, attorneys that have been exposing these things. But the article here reads, police clerk's testimony charges harassment and fear. Wauwatosa police clerk John Cutts said he was scared for his physical safety and feared the third shift police officers. He testified before the Police and Fire Commission investigating on-duty conduct of some third shift police officers. Although he described himself as the department's whipping boy, he kept the alleged incidents to himself out of fear. They, the police officers, are all friends, and I was one lone person by myself. I want you guys to pay attention to that verbiage, one lone person. Cutts said, I had no union, nobody to go to. I feared retaliation. So Cutts, just to give you guys, some context here, he's a civilian clerk. He's not a police officer, so he's not protected by the police union. Instead, he remained silent and said he was the brunt of harassment. Some of the antics were more than horseplay, he said. Cutts testified an officer fired a revolver at him. Later to learn it was loaded with blanks. We'll get into that story more. Other officers threw lit firecrackers at him. We'll talk about that. And officers damaged his car when they moved it from the police department parking lot and decorated it with Christmas lights, signs, and traffic cones. We'll discuss that too. Despite the antics he termed harassing, Cutts continued to socialize with fellow third shift workers because he said he was afraid to not participate in the parties. I attended the parties for fear of retaliation if I didn't go. The parties he attended included the 2 Martin Luther King parties, Christmas parties, and a party at Long Lake. Cutts cooperated with the departmental investigation led by then acting chief Frederick Basting into the alleged 1988 and 1989 Martin Luther King Day parties. All charges related to the parties were dropped in November by the Police and Fire Commission. I can't really read what that says. Because it ruled officers have a constitutional right to privacy during off-duty time. The investigation revealed some on-duty misconduct by officers Howard Bacon, David Breitlow, Lieutenant James Zalewski, Sergeants John Bolzocevic and Mark Tebow, and Detective Thomas Simon. Another 20 to 24 hours of testimony is expected before the Police and Fire Commission renders a ruling on whether disciplinary actions against the officers should be upheld or dropped. The 6 police officers have yet to testify. Attorney Linda Vanden Heuvel, questioned by Cutts, did not file his allegation charges immediately and directly to the police department hierarchy. She said it was obvious he understood the chain of command because he reported the Martin Luther King parties. Cutts said he has additional harassment allegations against first shift employees. He said his mail has not been given to him and he has had problems with fellow desk clerks and some other officers. So let's take a look at some of the officers here. I do want to bring up So I wanted to show this one a little bit out of order because it goes in line with some of the harassment. So this is Howard Bacon, okay? And this is from the Police and Fire Commission. So it says, Patrolman Howard Bacon appealed the charges filed by Acting Chief Frederick Basting against him. And whereas the Board of Police and Fire Commissioners have conducted hearings, accepted sworn testimony and documentary evidence, and upon conclusion of such hearing regarding Officer Howard Bacon, make the following findings of fact. So we'll kind of get into a little bit more detail about all that here in a minute. Officer Howard Bacon is a police officer employed by the Wauwatosa Police Department. John Cutts is a civilian desk clerk employed by the Wauwatosa Police Department and has been so employed in that capacity since 1987. On one occasion, while Mr. Cutts and Officer Bacon were on duty at the police department, Officer Bacon deliberately discharged his service revolver while it was loaded with a blank in the immediate vicinity of Mr. Cutts, and the discharge caused minor injury to Mr. Cutts. Now, I want you guys to pay attention to how these things are worded, this narrative, right? Like when you guys hear that, he deliberately discharged his service revolver with a blank bullet. You know, picture what does that mean inside of your mind? Like what are you picturing? Did he fire directly at him? Did he fire next to him? Right? Just pay attention to the verbiage and the narrative. Officer Bacon admitted that on April Fool's Day of 1988, he placed 2 fake warning cards on Mr. Cutts' car, and that such cards were intended as a joke, and that Mr. Cutts immediately recognized that they were not real warnings of violations. That Officer Bacon did not initiate the April Fool's joke regarding Mr. Cutts' car, but merely added the 2 fake warning cards to the already decorated car. Officer Bacon coined the phrase MFC as a reference to Mr. Cutts. MFC originally stood for useless motherfucking civilian. This phrase was used in Mr. Cutts' presence by Officer Bacon in reference to Mr. Cutts on a number of occasions. Other officers referred to Mr. Cutts in this fashion after the phrase MFC Cutts was initiated by Officer Bacon. Now, if we go to our buddy Thomas Simons, in March of 1990, Acting Chief Basting suspends Simons for a period of 2 days. Now, tomorrow we're going to talk about reprimands or suspensions for petty department violations and what they really mean and why they are in personnel files. So this document, and we're going to kind of go through each person because each person's is a little bit different. So on March 30th, 1990, Acting Chief Frederick Basting sends this memo, imposition of discipline. Based on your involvement with certain Martin Luther King Day parties, it is determined that you have violated Department Rule 2.07 by failing to govern yourself under ordinary and reasonable standards of good behavior. Your actions showed exceedingly poor judgment and insensitivity, and it has brought discredit on the department in violation of that rule. I also find that you have violated Department Rule 2.19 by washing of your personal vehicle on duty time. As a result of the violation of Rules 2.07 and 2.19, it is my order that you are suspended without pay for a period of 2 working days. You will be notified as soon as possible of your suspension dates. Okay, so he gets suspended. David Breitlow. You guys see this stuff that we're pulling up. So same thing with Breitlow. Based on your involvement with the MLK party held on January of 1988, it is determined that you have violated Department Rule 2.07 by failing to govern yourself under ordinary and reasonable standards of good behavior, thereby bringing discredit on the department. Your actions showed exceedingly poor judgment and insensitivity. I further find that your lighting of a firecracker in the police building and the lighting and throwing of a dud firecracker at a fellow employee are in violation of Department Rules 2.07 and 2.08. Based on the first violation of Rule 2.07 described above, it is my order that you be suspended without pay for a period of 1 day. As a result of the violation of Rules 2.07 and 2.08 with respect to the firecrackers, it is my order that you be suspended without pay for 2 additional days. So in respect to the fireworks, one of the fireworks that was thrown, not a dud, landed in Kutz's lunch bag, which ended up blowing a hole in the lunch bag. And then it sounds like on a second occasion through a dud firework, just to try to scare him. If we go to Mark Tebow. This one's a little harder to read. So same thing, March 1990, Acting Chief Basting suspends Tebow for a period of 8 days. In addition to the 8 days, Tebow is also suspended for duplicating personal videotapes using departmental equipment, which earns him a 1-day suspension and then earns another 1-day suspension for returning a video to a commercial establishment. Now, for me, these 2 suspension days are important. The first Blockbuster video was opened in 1985, so it is possible that Tebow rented a video from there, or not from the one in 1985, because I think that was in LA, but obviously they started building all over the place. So it's possible that he rented a video from a local Blockbuster or a smaller store and loved the movie so much that he wanted a personal copy, which is illegal, by the way. But after the research done and people I've spoken with and getting an understanding of the petty suspension, which again, we'll talk about later, as well as pictures that were taken during the MLK parties, passed around and shown in the 2000s, I have reason to believe that Tebow was actually making duplicate copies of the MLK party videos to pass out to other officers. Now, if we go back to Howard Bacon. Same thing, March 1990, Acting Chief Basting suspends Bacon for a period of 2 days. Bacon earns an additional 18 days for discharging his weapon within the department, moving a coworker's vehicle and filing a false report about that vehicle and referring to a coworker in a disparaging manner. The narrative that was detailed in the reports is that Bacon loaded his gun with a blank round and fired it in close proximity of Kutz. A source with knowledge of the incident claims that Bacon entered Kutz's work area in a state of theatrics, claiming he was going to commit suicide because he was going to lose his job. After he got Kutz all worked up and terrified, he discharged the weapon as if he just blew his brains out. My favorite officer, James Zalewski. Basting ends up suspending Zalewski for a period of 20 days for his role in the MLK parties. Basting also writes, due to Zalewski's lieutenant position, that he will be filing charges with the Police and Fire Commission for an additional 25 days and a demotion to sergeant. Again, with not having Bolzocevic's file, which will go to him. We only have access to documents with his suspension days. Bolzocevic receives a 20-day suspension along with a 10-day suspension, which I think is. One image I do want to show to give you an idea of the type of threats and intimidation that John Kutz was receiving, besides the fireworks, disparaging names, and having a gun fired in his work area, is the direct threat letter sent to him. I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to warn you guys, this is a bit graphic. There's some very strong language on here. Just wait for this to pull up. So this image might be a little difficult for some of you to see. So at the top of this, and some of the stuff I'm not going to repeat, but it says John Cutts, Wauwatosa Police Department, drop dead snitch, N-word lover, hope your kid marries one. Why don't you move to N-word town and work there? We don't want you. I'm going to repeat this. You can fucking cancel me later, I guess. Spear chuckers belong in Africa. I don't know what you think. I don't know what that means. I hope one of them robs you and rapes your wife and daughter. That sentence right there, I want you guys to remember. I want that embedded in your head because we're going to discuss this later. That exact verbiage. I hope one of them rapes your wife and daughter. Run a fundraiser to send all N-words, and then in quotes, African Americans back to Africa, and I'll contribute. That shit, it sounds very familiar to comments that pop up in our live streams. I love Wauwatosa without N-words. Signed, a resident for 30 years. Now, this article that was written by a journalist named Eric Strand, talks about this this threat letter, and there's also the official run-in N-word target. A single-page document depicts a silhouette of a running black man and a margin note reading, "Note, all body shots count. Shots to head do not count unless metal-piercing cartridge is used." At the bottom right, it is a space for the competitor's name and score. The second document is a notice from the Department of Environmental Conservation, a fictitious state agency. Its initial page is typed on stationery containing the state seal. The notice announces an open hunting season on porch monkeys, unemployed Africans, regionally known as, I can't believe these people fucking write this, regionally known as jigaboos, saucer lips, jungle bunnies, jet black variety, spooks, and spear chuckers. Great, that's going to get fucking clipped. If it outlines regulations describing game preserves such as welfare offices, food stamp distribution centers, liquor stores, Cadillac dealerships, rib shops, ghettos, and sports arenas where professional basketball games are being played. That was uncomfortable as shit to read. Do you guys see like all the massive stereotypes that are in here? These are all the types of things that are being sent to John Cutts. These are the types of things that are being said to him. Okay. Because he ended up, snitching on all of these officers. Now, I want you guys to understand when you're in the streets chanting, "All cops are bastards," what these people go through when they whistleblow on officers. And this will make more sense when we discuss 2 Wauwatosa officers, as well as another dispatcher and records clerk in tomorrow night's episode. The following month, April of 1990, all 13 officers file an appeal with the Police and Fire Commission over their suspensions. Let's go back to Howard Bacon's file. There's a lot of jumping around here, guys. Bear with me. What's up, Misery? Yeah, Breezy. This, this stuff's been hard to read for the last week of diving into this. Make sure you guys share the stream out, please. Send this out, like the stream. If you want to help contribute to the work that we do here, there's some pinned links and things like that. All right. So April 6th, 1990. I'm going to read this one. They're all pretty similar in verbiage. This is to the Police and Fire Commission, to a John J. Benson, who's the president at the time, regarding the charges and requests for hearing on Officer Howard Bacon. Again, they all send very similar letters. Dear Sir, as acting chief of police and pursuant to section 62.13, section 5C, Wisconsin statutes, I suspended Officer Howard Bacon for a violation of Rule 2.07 of the department's rules and regulations based on his attendance at 2 Martin Luther King Day parties held in January of 1988 and January of 1989, and for violation of Rules 2.07 and 2.08 for discharging his weapon within the police department building, his involvement in the moving of a fellow employee's vehicle and the writing of a false report regarding that vehicle, and his referring to a fellow employee in a disparaging manner. As a result of the first listed violation of Rule 2.07 above, I ordered that Officer Bacon be suspended without pay for a period of 2 workdays. As a result of the additional violations of Rules 2.07 and 2.08, I ordered that Officer Bacon be suspended for an additional 18 days. Attached here, too, as Exhibit A, is a true and correct copy of my order of suspension relating to those incidents. It is my understanding that Officer Bacon has now requested a hearing on the 20-day suspension which I imposed. Therefore, pursuant to Section 62.13, Section 5C Wisconsin statutes, I am hereby filing charges against Officer Bacon for violation of Rules 2.07 and 2.08 as described in the attached order. I am requesting that you, as President of the Police and Fire Commission, set a date for hearing for Officer Bacon on the suspension according to Section 62.13. Section 5D Wisconsin statutes. Respectfully submitted, Frederick J. Basting, Acting Chief of Police. So this is why I said yesterday, I think I kind of like Chief Basting. Like I said yesterday, when he was a captain, to me, reading 6,000 documents, it really seemed like Basting's hands were tied. He knew about a lot of ridiculousness that was going on in the department. And he was kind of being blocked. And after Chief Roy Wellnitz gets pushed out and Basting kind of gets this temporary power, he's going to take advantage of it. And he just starts smoking these cops, right? And unfortunately, that all goes away. Now, next, I want to look at a letter that James Zalewski wrote to the Police and Fire Commission in April 1990, trying to fight his suspension without pay because I think it's important. So let's go to Zalewski's file. That's why I said yesterday there's going to be a lot to unpack here. All right. So this is dated April 2nd, 1990. So I hereby appeal the imposition of discipline contained in the memo of Acting Police Chief Frederick J. Basting, dated March 30th, 1990, a copy of which is annexed here to and made a part hereof. Pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 62.13, Section 5C, I am requesting a hearing before the City of Wauwatosa Police and Fire Commission on the 20-day suspension from duty. Request is made that the chief file specific charges with the Police and Fire Commission upon which my suspension is allegedly based. Pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 62.13, Section 5, I don't know what that says, 5B maybe, which provides that no person shall be deprived of compensation while suspended pending disposition of charges. Demand is made that the suspension detailed in Acting Police Frederick J. Basting's memo of March 30th, 1990 be lifted, or alternatively that such suspension with pay until the disposition of the charges by the City of Wauwatosa Police and Fire Commission. Thank you very much for your consideration. And he goes on. So I wanted to read that because I think it's important that, Basting starts smoking these guys. They end up challenging it, and now he files official charges with the Police and Fire Commission. So this is why I'm saying I think I like Basting. Okay. And, when these guys end up getting suspended without pay, they go and cry. And they cry to the Police and Fire Commission, and then they go and cry to their police union. And in reading all these documents that we've gone through, 6,000 different documents, regarding various different types of suspensions or written reprimands, verbal reprimands, some of these officers, for petty stuff, they end up going to the police union and they challenge those reprimands based on their labor agreement. Okay. So I'm gonna say those things again for those of you that are paying attention and want to incite change. Okay. Police and Fire Commission, the police union, and the labor agreement. Okay. All right. And then he writes to Richard G. Keller, Secretary, City of Wauwatosa Police and Fire Commission. Same thing, wants a hearing. Okay. And he just does not stop. He just keeps writing stuff. All right. There's all these documents. And then Basting kind of responds back. So it says, so this is from Basting. 1, Lieutenant James Zalewski failed to ensure compliance with department rules and regulations and failed to maintain proper discipline, good order, and efficiency on the third shift in violation of rules 3.13 Section A, 3.13 Section D, 3.13 Section H, and 3.15 and 3.16 of the department's rules and regulations in the following instances. A, allowing subordinate officers to set off firecrackers in the police station on duty time. B, improper handling of an incident where a subordinate officer discharged his service revolver as a practical joke in the police station on duty time. C, improper handling of instances of verbal harassment against a civilian desk clerk on duty at the police station. D, improper handling of an incident where the civilian desk clerk's car was relocated and falsely ticketed by officers under his command. E, allowing subordinate officers to use the police department's floor buffer for personal use and sending a civilian desk clerk to pick up and return the floor buffer with the department vehicle on duty time. F, allowing a subordinate officer to use a department VCR to make a personal copy of a videotape. G, allowing inappropriate and harassing memos to be circulated on duty time regarding the desk clerk. Lieutenant Zalewski violated Rule 2.19 by conducting personal business such as schoolwork on duty time. Pay attention to that because that's actually not true. Conducting schoolwork on duty time. He was doing something else. Lieutenant Zalewski violated Department Rule 2.21 and 2.35 by using a department VCR to make a personal copy of a videotape. So he's also making copies of a video. And that's why it leads me to believe that, Tebow didn't rent a Blockbuster movie and make copies. I think they were all making copies of their recordings at these MLK parties. Now, this one thing where it's talking about this floor buffer and then sending a civilian desk clerk. So one of the sources that we talked to, if you were part of this little clique, right? Think of high school and all the little cliques. If you were part of this main clique, okay, these terrorizing officers and their little followers, you used to be able to take a squad car as a civilian, right? You could take the squad car. They would send you to go pick up lunch. They'd send you to go return floor buffers, pick up your kids from school, make off-duty stops at people's houses to go check in on them. But if you weren't part of the clique, then if this, behavior ended up getting caught, then you were written up for it. So there's a discrimination there, with the officers as well. And then this other part, and I don't remember if I make reference to it later in the thing, so I'm just going to say it now. But this part where he gets in trouble for making copies of schoolwork, okay, this is actually not true. So it says conducting personal business such as schoolwork on duty time. He while he's in school, because he's learning to do a bunch of things, this is also a narrative that gets pushed out, but he's actually written up for making copies of records. Okay. Now, Barry Weber comes in the following month in May 1990. Weber will also find himself being investigated by the Police and Fire Commission for also intimidating John Cutts, which will end up getting dismissed under the guise of being unfounded. So let's go to Simons's thing. Okay, and then we showed this article yesterday. Okay. I think. All right, so this one is specifically about Chief Barry Weber. Now, Barry claims that he's never been investigated for anything. We already know Chief Weber lies. Tosa Commission rejects complaint against Chief. The Wauwatosa Police and Fire Commission voted Wednesday not to hold a hearing on police civilian clerk John Cutts' complaint that Police Chief Barry Weber tried to intimidate him after a mayoral and city administrator's investigation cleared Weber of any misconduct. The 4-1 decision surprised Weber, who had been prepared for the worst as deliberations before the commissioner went into executive session. Cutts had accused Weber of harassment and trying to intimidate him after Cutts filed a complaint against Detective Thomas Simons, whom he contends threatened him in January. "I'm in shock," Weber said. "I don't know what to think. I was just preparing my argument." Chairman Charles Ryder dissented. He said he interpreted as mandatory and unambiguous a state statute that says a hearing shall be held within 30 days of the filing of a formal complaint. Commissioner Terry Wolf and Grant Schmidt disagreed with Ryder's interpretation of shall. We know shall to be like mandatory. It's constantly ruled out in courts. Initially, it looked as though they'd be the only two voting against holding a hearing. Commissioners Richard Keller and John Benson sided with Ryder, but after the commission went into executive session to consult with Assistant City Attorney Suzanne Schalig, Keller and Benson left Ryder's camp. Schalig assured officials that, in her opinion, the commission was not bound to hold a hearing, nor would it be in violation of state law if it decided not to hold a hearing. Keller and Benson said afterward that they still believed the statute was unambiguous and required the hearing, but that they voted against it because Schalig's opinion protected the commission. "The assistant city attorney has protected this commission by her opinion," Benson said. "I didn't change my mind. I believe the state statute is very clear that shall means shall," which it does. Listen to any lawyer argue the word shall in court. That's why these things are always going to appellate courts and Supreme Courts. Now, there's something about there's something about Ryder, Commissioner Ryder. Okay, I'm not going to talk about it now, but I want you guys to remember this, and we'll talk about it at the end. Okay, write that down and remind me. All right, now if we go back to Zalewski's file, 687. All right. Due to the threats and intimidation towards Cutts, officers are sent to a prohibited practice hearing. Okay. In August 1990. At the same time, in August, Zalewski gets reprimanded for bolting his desk to the floor. So I want you to, I'm going to read this. This is stupid and it sounds ridiculously petty, but it's very important. So he gets written up, and then he sends a memo, inner office correspondence. Okay, these things are very difficult to get, these inner office correspondences or interdepartmental memorandums. They like to hide that stuff. So he sends this thing to Captain John Walkener. Per your memo of August 17th, 1990, I have removed the screws and brackets holding my desk in a permanent position. However, since you chose not to discuss the matter with me in person, this correspondence is intended to explain what precipitated the necessity to do so. Numerous times in the past several years, I have spoken to Lieutenant Nauman and requested that he rearrange his desk and filing cabinet similar to a position as done by myself and Lieutenant Greisberg, so that access to the typewriter could be achieved by all the lieutenants. Instead, he has chosen not to do so, but has on a daily basis moved the undersigned's desk, causing similar damage to the floor as you refer to being done when moving Lieutenant Nauman's desk. This damage apparently went unnoticed by you. In addition, the daily moving of the undersigned's desk has caused the movement of items on top of the desk, such as the telephone, desktop radio controller, file tray, etc., and necessitated daily removing of my desk back to its original position to allow enough room to be seated at same and daily reorganization of the desktop prior to beginning my tour of duty. Since Lieutenant Nauman refused to cooperate and allow the undersigned approximately half the width of the working space in the office, it was necessary to take the measure I did. Further, I am sure you have seen my desk pushed back to the position I have mentioned, but again, you apparently did not consider this important. With the above in mind, I am respectfully requesting that Lieutenant Nauman be informed not to move my desk from its position, but instead do his share to fairly share the office space. And additionally, I consider this matter, as it was handled, to be nothing more than continued harassment and discrimination against the undersigned. Okay. So that sounds petty, right? I think we can all agree to this. These sound like little kids right now. But I point this out because if you guys remember from yesterday's episode, James Zalewski is moving through the ranks very quickly, okay? Looking at everyone's files that we have access to, and there's still more, hence why we are asking for some contributions so we can try to pay for these things and sue this department again. But he's moving through the ranks. He's got an education. And Zalewski thinks he's better than everybody, okay? And with what you're hearing here, just in this desk situation, and what we've already heard with John Cutts, this guy doesn't care. This guy's just going to intimidate everybody around him, including superiors and things like that. Okay. So for me, I'm taking this as a message to other officers not to mess with him. August 30th, 1990, John Bolzocevic is promoted to lieutenant to replace James Zalewski. Now, keep in mind, Bolzocevic hosted the Martin Luther King parties. Okay, I'm going to read you guys that. How you guys doing? You holding in? All right. I want to share this article. Sorry. Those of you that watch, you know my computer hates me. We have this old computer that's slow. Yeah, there's a lot of deep stuff. Today's a lot to unpack. Tomorrow's even crazier. Okay, so this was December of 1980, so shortly after Christmas, and this kind of lists out like these top 10 stories. And the number one read story was regarding racism charges hit police department, shaking up the city. Charges that were levied against 13 police officers accused of racist or demeaning behavior in March because of their involvement in two Martin Luther King Day themed parties in 1988 and 1989 were dismissed in November by the Wauwatosa Police and Fire Commission. Now, we've learned from talking to sources that there was, in fact, some additional parties, may not have been under this MLK party thing, but there was another party in 1990 in January. A March investigation revealed the officers allegedly attended two parties in the home of Sergeant John Bolzocevic, where ethnic foods were served. An officer allegedly wore a black mask, and officers wore name tags bearing the names of minority persons. Many community members, including several common council members and James Brundall, were publicly outraged at the officers' behavior. In an attempt to improve the city's public image and correct any racist behavior by city personnel, the Common Council tried to get funding for a human relations program for all city employees, but the measure was not approved. The charges against the officers were later dismissed by the Police and Fire Commission. The commission ruled the issue pertaining to off-duty activities of police officers involve important constitutional issues in which the rights of police departments and communities must be balanced with the rights and duties of individual police officers. Police and Fire Commission will determine in January the fate of officers who engaged in pranks while on duty, including one incident in which a gun was allegedly pointed at a police clerk's head. All right, so that's that article. You guys are quiet tonight. All right, so this is a portion of an article. So, and I thought this was pretty important too. So we have a portion, the portion that we have, it says cooperating with the investigation. Some of those who were the target of the investigation have received favorable treatment. The shift lieutenant at the time of the alleged King Day party, James Zalewski, is now being paid for not working due to duty incurred injury. A shift sergeant at the time of the party, John Bolzocevic, who allegedly hosted the Martin Luther King Day party, has been promoted to acting lieutenant in Zalewski's absence. On the whole, the actions of the department, both before you, Chief Weber, came and now after, make it difficult for members of the force to feel comfortable in cooperating with management internal investigations, Cross told Weber in her letter. when the result is adversely affected working conditions and hours for those who cooperate, and a temporary promotion or leave with pay for those who do not, it does not appear that you and your department are seeking a full airing of the racism and sexism at the department, she added. Cross said she had not received any response to her letter. So that's a letter sent to Chief Weber. So as much as you guys don't like Chief Weber now, he wasn't liked back then either. All right. Now, in November, let's go to this. We're going to read this whole thing. November 1st, 1990, the Police and Fire Commission comes back with their decision regarding the 13 officers listed. Okay. Let me just hold this up. And we're going to talk more about why they promoted, why they, get these paid things. And that article is very clear that not cooperating, right, is going to, it's going to lead to award systems. All right, here we are. Sorry. All right, so this is a copy of the actual Police and Fire Commission decision on motions to dismiss. Okay. Hold your seats. Now it's addressed to all 13 officers, right, in the matter of the appeals. And it states, the commission has considered the briefs and arguments presented by the parties in support of and in opposition to appellants' motions to dismiss the disciplinary charges related to the Martin Luther King Day parties on the grounds that such discipline would violate the free speech, association, and privacy rights of appellants. The issues considered by the Police and Fire Commission pertaining to off-duty activities of police officers involve important constitutional issues in which the rights of police departments and communities must be balanced with the rights and duties of individual police officers. The expectations of the community and of the Police and Fire Commission are that police officers should be held to a higher standard of conduct, that while off duty, they would refrain from activities that would prove embarrassing to the community or to the police department or other activities, such as these Martin Luther King Day parties, which suggest racist attitudes or views demeaning to a minority group. It is the expectation of the Commission and the citizens of Wauwatosa that police officers will exercise good judgment and good taste and not participate in activities that may be construed as racist or demeaning to different ethnic groups. And whereas these reasonable expectations may exist, they do not necessarily constitute enforceable conduct for which disciplinary action may be taken. There should be no question that the Police and Fire Commission abhors the activities complained of by Acting Chief Basting, and the Commission fully understands the reaction of Acting Chief Basting to the disclosures of the Martin Luther King Day parties. Acting Chief Basting and other municipal officials were rightfully concerned and offended to learn of such activities by members of the Wauwatosa Police Department and consequently, we find no fault with the issuance of these charges. But nevertheless, in weighing the delicate balance between the expectations of the community and the police department as an employer against the constitutional rights of free speech, freedom of association, and the rights of privacy, we address and carefully weigh in the balance these conflicting interests. The rights of off-duty police officers participating in non-criminal activity in the privacy of a residence outside the municipality outweighs the right of government to interfere with these constitutionally protected activities without a clear showing that job performance is significantly affected or that the department operation or effectiveness is significantly affected in an adverse manner. We conclude that the allegations in this case do not sufficiently support such required impact so as to outweigh the constitutionally protected rights of the police officers. The interests of the police department in maintaining good community relations and support are important and compelling, but the balance is delicate. The off-duty conduct alleged by the department to violate Rule 2.07 is conduct protected by the United States Constitution and the Wisconsin Constitution. The department has not established the conduct of appellants interfered with the efficiency of the City of Wauwatosa Police Department. As a result, the record before us will not justify an intrusion into their private, out-of-uniform, off-duty, legal conduct allegedly engaged in by appellants outside the City of Wauwatosa in the home of one of the appellants. It is therefore the decision of City of Wauwatosa Police and Fire Commission that those charges relating to off-duty activities of James Zalewski, John Bolzocevic, John Laffey, Mark Tebow, Mark Presper, Roger Martins, Thomas Simons, Fred Karski, Michael Regals, Jeffrey Pruss, Daniel Collins, David Breitlow, and Howard Bacon be and hereby are dismissed. Dated this day of November, 1990. Now, November 2nd, 1990, Zalewski files paperwork to get his lost pay returned for his suspension from his suspension. The Police and Fire Commission deemed to be unwarranted. Okay, so this is dated November 2nd, 1990. It's titled "Return of Lost Pay," and it is sent to Chief Barry Weber. It states, "Sir, on Friday, March 30th, 1990, the undersigned was suspended from duty without pay by then Acting Chief Frederick J. Basting for my alleged involvement in so-called Martin Luther King Day parties. Because the date involved was my regular off day, the suspension took effect immediately the next day, resulting in the loss of pay for March 31st and April 1st, 1990. Further, since these dates occurred on a Saturday and Sunday, I was not able to appeal the suspension until Monday, April 2nd. As you are aware, on November 1st, 1990, the Wauwatosa Police and Fire Commission dismissed all charges relating to the mentioned activities. With this in mind, I would respectfully request the following: that all references and material relating to the above noted suspension and charges be removed from the undersigned's personnel file, and that I immediately, in the same manner I was suspended, be reimbursed in the amount of $335.52, which was deducted from my payroll check dated April 19th, 1990, for the period ending April 7th, 1990. Fucking guy. On November 8th, 1990, okay, so mind you, Police and Fire Commission makes their determination November 1st. November 2nd, Zalewski is right on top of it. He wants his money. November 8th, 1990, Barry Weber will agree to have his pay awarded back to him. November 29th, 1990, Zalewski ends up getting reprimanded for entering another officer's office and tampering with his desk. So this is to Zalewski from Chief Weber. Now I want you guys to keep in mind, I'm going to be reading a lot of reprimands that are coming from Chief Weber, okay? This is not really coming from Chief Weber. This is all stuff that just saves him face, Okay. One thing I want you guys to understand about Weber is that Weber comes in and he's essentially this politician. Okay. We spent some time yesterday discussing the image of Wauwatosa. Okay. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the image of Wauwatosa. Tomorrow, we're very heavily going to be discussing the image of Wauwatosa. Okay. Some of these words I put some emphasis on because I really want you guys to pay attention to them. So the letter says you are to be reprimanded for neglect of duty pertaining to an incident reported by the custodian on November 13th, 1990. Specifically, it was reported his office had been opened and his desk had also been tampered with. You reported being in the office during your shift to obtain a knife. The early shift custodian reported that at 11 p.m., when he completed his shift, the office and desk were the way Mr. Hinz had left it. As a shift commander, the responsibility of the police facility and the equipment is yours during your shift. The fact this incident occurred during your shift under your supervision is not acceptable to this office. Pursuant to the rules and regulations of the Wauwatosa Police Department, I hereby officially reprimand you, Chief Barry Weber. All right, and then now I'm going to kind of go back to some articles here. All right, now this article, Commissioner seeks change in the duties of the city attorney. Again, written by Mary Hone. Displeased with the representation the police and fire chiefs are getting from outside attorneys hired by the city, Police and Fire Commissioner Charles Ryder, there's that name again, say he no longer wants City Attorney Harold Gerke to act as counsel for the commission. If Gerke didn't represent the commission, he would be available to represent all department heads, including the police and fire chiefs. Ryder suggested Gerke would be a better and more cost-effective job of representing the chiefs in disciplinary matters than the attorneys hired from the Quarles and Brady law firm. Because Gerke is retained by the month and not by the hour, Ryder said the city would save a lot of money and needless hearing time if the city attorney or his staff were responsible to department heads and not the Police and Fire Commission. During recent appeals hearings that looked into the disciplinary actions taken against 13 officers who allegedly attended Martin Luther King Day parties and other accusations about third shift on-duty behavior, David Kern, a Quarles and Brady attorney, represented the city. Gerke represented the commission. Ryder said if Gerke had represented acting police chief Fred Bastings instead of Kern, the Martin Luther King Party fiasco would have been handled differently. He said Gerke would probably have known that to discipline the officers for off-duty conduct was unconstitutional. The commission dropped the charges against the officers because the Constitution protects what a person does in his private home. Referring to the appeals hearings, Ryder said, I don't believe we would have seen such hoopla come out of the city attorney's office. Common sense should have been dictated that there was no actionable case there. If the Police and Fire Commission would vote to obtain other counsel, Ryder said, there would be less of an appearance of conflict of interest. The point is the city attorney should rightly attend to City Hall and police and fire matters. This commission is a separate entity. We are not part of the City Hall gang. We are not a city department. Often, he said, the commission will not need to hire outside counsel. As an independent board, we will be free to get counsel if and when needed, and we will do so on a case-by-case basis. I don't believe counsel is needed in each and every case, Ryder said. An attorney by profession, Ryder volunteered his staff's time at no expense to the city to accomplish routine matters. Worried about the cost, Ryder said the expenditure of money is needless. According to commission documentation, Quarles and Brady billed the city for more than $81,000 in 1990. Records indicate most of the bill was for the Police and Fire Commission hearing matters, the commissioner said. It is up to the commission to decide whether Gerke should be removed as counsel in future disciplinary actions. It is expected a decision will be made this week. Gerke was unavailable to comment on what role he believes he should play in the commission and police and fire departments. Now, when I said we'll come back to Ryder, just in case I forgot, one of the craziest things about this police and fire commissioner is that his wife was in the Wauwatosa Police Department and witnessed an argument that's going to happen that we'll end up talking about. The wife witnesses this argument. So she's a direct witness in testimony in these hearings and things. And because of Ryder, so we talked about John Cutts, like, you know, getting this intimidation and all these threats and all this other stuff. Commissioner Ryder is also participating in all of that. And he's disseminating these letters, these harassment letters that are going around. He's disseminating these things. And the Police and Fire Commission actually ended up having to file a restraining order to keep him from that room, which is why he didn't get the vote. It's not public. It's not public info. People don't know that. It's unreal. It's absolutely unreal. Now, to give you guys a little bit of hope, I want you to be all super dismal. There are some good ones. So this is a little op-ed that was written by some residents. Okay. So it says immediate action needed to combat racism. We are concerned about the racist behavior of some of the Wauwatosa police officers. We are outraged by the inadequate response to that behavior by city officials. An opportunity to combat a blatant example of institutional racism was ignored. There's that phrase, institutional racism. A bold approach to address the issues would have sent a clear signal to a larger community that Wauwatosa is a place that welcomes all people. Instead, through ignorance or deception, or a combination of the two, the incidents were minimized to the extent that it now appears that nothing of concern actually occurred. The time when such a reaction can be tolerated by a concerned society is long past. When a person selects a career as a police officer, he or she knows his or her actions will be held up to public scrutiny. When one chooses to serve in a public role, one precludes the luxury of a private life. The hope, of course, is that those who serve the public would live lives that are exemplary. The reality is often quite the opposite. It is unacceptable to perpetuate the myth that there is not a problem with racism in Wauwatosa, and it is unacceptable to fail to take firm action against it. We need to begin immediately and wholeheartedly to educate people, to begin anti-racism training programs. Even if the financial resources are not available, the people resources are. This training obviously must become a top priority for the city. The reputation of Wauwatosa will be irreparably damaged if we do not take action immediately. This letter was also sent to the mayor, the city administrator, the president of the Common Council, the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, and every single alderman. And mind you, for all those people that say racism stopped in 1964, we're in 1990, and it's very prominent. In 1994, Barry Weber would post a lieutenant promotion document with a list of names of officers next in line. Later, Weber would implement a new policy regarding lieutenant promotions that would get him sued in 1996 by at least 2 officers because they were passed up in order to promote Martin Luther King Party officers. Let's go back to everybody's files. You're still alive? You hanging in there? I'll share now. There we go. Sorry, computer hates me sometimes. All right, we're going to kind of move on, kind of quick here. January 1991, Mark Tebow gets promoted to a field training sergeant. Okay, that's what this document is. January 14th, 1991. John Cutts' attorney ends up sends a letter to the PFC regarding Thomas Simons and the threats of physical harm to John Cutts. Let me see. I think I have pages mixed up here. January 22nd, 1991, Chief Weber sends a letter to the Police and Fire Commission regarding Thomas Simons and the threats made to John Cutts. Between April and June of 1991, I think this is under Simons' file. I'm sorry. Between April and June 1991, Thomas Simons had some back and forth with the city of Wauwatosa in regards to receiving legal counsel. This argument regarding his attorney fees continues into February of 1992. So remember, this all kind of stems from 88, 89, 90. We're already 2 years in. And by July 1993, he finally withdraws his request for legal fees. Okay. So that's what, that's what this document is. All right. This is more letters from the attorney in regards to legal fees. So he's crying because he had to hire a lawyer to represent him. May of 1991. Let's jump here. I kind of jumping back and forth with officers. Okay, Zalewski gets reprimanded for making copies of files. So I'm going to read this. At 8:30 hours on this date, I spoke to Lieutenant James Zalewski regarding his actions, specifically obtaining certain records and using copy machines to duplicate them on duty. He was advised if he needed specific information, it was to be requested through the office of the chief. A determination would then be made as to which records would be released pursuant to open records requirements. Lieutenant Zalewski advised he would comply according to the rules and regulations requirements. No further action need to be taken at this time unless subsequent incident occurs. Now, what'd be interesting to find out is, one, what records was he documenting, and then did Barry Weber take those records away from him? Now, we know that the types of records, he's making copies of things to represent him or evidences that he needs in his own legal issues, and to be able to defend against John Cutts. Now, let's jump here. All right, in July 1991, Mark Tebow requests when his 2 suspension days will be. Okay, this is a practice that is common within departments. Officers are allowed to pick their suspension days and spread them over several pay periods. Okay, so this is to Chief Weber from Sergeant Mark Tebow, dated July 1991. I request to take my 2 suspension days on August 10th and August 11th of 1991. I have talked with Lieutenant Nauman and set these 2 days aside pending your approval. We go to David Breitlow. David Breitlow's suspension days are scheduled around manpower of the department, so they won't be shorthanded. October 4th, 1991, the Police and Fire Commission issues its disciplinary decision regarding Howard Bacon. They also make a decision regarding Thomas Simon's suspension for washing his personal vehicle on company time. October 1991, Howard Bacon receives an internal document regarding his suspension days. Okay, so it's got a list of 3 days in October, 4 days in November, 6 days in December. The remaining 4 days will be scheduled in the beginning of 1992. So this document was dated August 1991. 13 of his suspension days are listed for the remainder of 1991. The other 4 days are to be scheduled for January and February 1992. Also in October 1991, James Zalewski is demoted from lieutenant to sergeant. So that was that whole thing where he gets demoted, and then John Bolzocevic gets promoted to acting lieutenant, and actually becomes like Weber's right-hand person. Also in October of 1991, Mark Tebow receives a letter of appreciation for developing a training program for new recruits. So let's fast forward through the 90s into the 2000s with the officers' careers. First will be Thomas Simons. 1996 is not a good year for Simons. If you remember, back in 1988, Simons was arrested for battery to his wife. They're still having marital issues. Let's go back to Simons. March 31st, 1996, Simons gets suspended without pay pending an internal investigation. April 1st, 1996, Simons receives a letter that he is going to be questioned regarding the internal investigation. There is no other documentation regarding what the investigation is. One source claims that Simons was arrested for shoplifting. We're unsure when and where, as there are no court proceedings regarding this, so it's unsure if this incident had anything to do with the internal investigation. April 8th, 1996, Simon sends a memo that he will be retiring. The same day, Chief Weber sends a memo regarding Simons's final days through the 15th. November of 1996, Simon's wife files for a divorce. The divorce gets finalized in August 1997. Simons remarries and once again gets divorced in 2006. Simons goes back and forth in court, being sued over financial issues. The most recent, in 2020, it appears he's suing due to an injury. Next up, we have Howard Bacon. In August 1992, Bacon becomes a field training officer. Kind of outlining how all of these guys end up getting promoted. August 1993, he receives some type of citizen complaint for his actions. Okay, that's what this is. February 1994, a citizen sends in a letter regarding a stop that Bacon made regarding lewd behavior. I wanted to point this out. While I definitely understand individuals engaged in intimate encounters in the park, what caught my attention was the word gay. We'll get into Wauwatosa's stance regarding the LGBTQ community, but to me, this was an indication how residents viewed gays. I read this as this person was grossed out, even though they weren't there. It simply had to do with the situation involving a gay couple. November 1994, Bacon joins Tosa'S SRT team. That's a special response team. Okay, and he's going to go with Presper, who's another one of the MLK people. December 1994, Bacon completes his SWAT training. Bacon's experience with guns is going to be very important later on. September 1985, Bacon receives more SRT training. February 1995, where the fuck are we? Receives more SWAT training. October 1995, Bacon completes his advanced SWAT training. February 1996, Bacon puts in a request for part-time employment and gets it improved. There will be a reason for this that we'll discuss later. And that reason I found to be very interesting. March 1997, Bacon receives a letter of appreciation from Weber regarding his position as a field training officer. So Weber's over here praising these people. January 1998, Bacon submits documentation regarding his part-time employment due to his owning and operating a private security company. So he ends up going part-time with Wauwatosa PD to go run his FBI company. October 1998, more advanced SWAT training, even though he's a part-time officer. May 1999, Bacon receives a letter of appreciation for his attending Citizen Police Academy. That's going to be extremely important. I'll explain more about this and why it's important later. August 2000, Bacon serves on the SRT under the supervision of James Mastrocola. We'll talk about Mastrocola another time, but most of you will know him as Joseph Mensa's supervisor. I think we're actually going to do a part 4 because we have Mastrocola's file. October 2000, Bacon completes basic sniper training. Now we'll finish Bacon's career tomorrow, but I'm sure you can see the direction in which he's headed within the Wauwatosa Police Department. All right. We'll move on to David Breitlow. His career is pretty uneventful. As you remember, he was a bicycle cop for most of his time. In March 1993, he completes cultural diversity training, which I kind of found to be comical. February 1994, there's a letter in Breitlow's file regarding a Teamsters strike. Now, I want to read this because if we look at 2020, 2021, with the protests that happened, We remember Wauwatosa had implemented a curfew. They were tear gassing and rubber bulleting protesters. We know that they pulled Mama Cole out of her car and they beat her up a bit. Other protesters were getting beat up. There were snatch and grabs. We have some of those body cam videos from Wauwatosa PD up on the page. You'll have to scroll down. But you can hear them in their dash cam and body cams talking about their targeted snatch and grabs. So we have a lot of those videos that are up there. But this, it says, Dear Chief Weber, I truly appreciate your assistance at yesterday's Teamster strike of United Parcel Service off Blue Mound Road. Not just the presence, but the professional yet personable demeanor of Sergeant John Bolzocevic and officers Lynn Cavaleris, David Breitlow, James Mastrocola, and Michael Schultz contributed greatly to the peacefulness of the demonstration. Certainly, a Teamsters picket line holds potential for breaches of the peace. The cooperation and interaction of your officers and mine provided a low-key yet significant unified police presence that I am convinced kept problems to an absolute minimum. I commend your officers for their performance on this assignment and thank you again for your continued cooperation. And this is from Elm Grove Police Department, Police Chief Jeffrey Haig. So, this is in 1994. And I point that out because the difference when it comes to the treatment of Teamsters, and we've all seen documentaries with these Teamster picket lines. A lot of times they have resorted in violence. We've watched those documentaries. It's displayed, in movies depicting, Hoffa. They're pretty violent. And these guys are, just everything's super peaceful. Very big difference than what we see against protesters fighting against, injustices. All right, now we're going to finish Breitlow's career. Today, I've mentioned medals and awards with these officers. One thing that really stood out to me in everyone's files regarding medals and awards, they aren't just something where a supervisor puts in a request to have an officer receive an award. They can put their own request for medals and awards in. And I'm not sure how I feel about that, especially with the ease in which most of these are given out. So, Breitlow, in 2003, puts in a request for his medals. I request a Blue Star Award for injuries sustained on duty. Okay, and then this is the accident that he got in, a vehicle accident, and he's going to end up getting this this Blue Star Award. Breitlow would later die in November 2004 from a heart attack. So we're kind of done talking about Breitlow. There's one thing I really wanted to show this. So that's Breitlow again. See if I can find it. I meant to look this up earlier today because there was his entire file is just filled with his funeral stuff. There's like 60 pages of this guy's personnel file filled with pictures from the funeral, and it's all bikers here. The mustache. So this is all the funeral procession. So, and this guy is wearing a Sheboygan Police Department patch. So, again, not to say that everybody that rides a motorcycle is a racist piece of shit, but let's look at the time period. All right. So then Mark Tebow. April 1993, Weber sends him a letter of appreciation for serving on the board of new recruits conducting oral interviews. So this guy is in charge of interviewing everybody new coming into the department. Remember, this is a guy who is labeled his own worst enemy and somebody who potentially videotaped MLK Party. February 1997, Tebow gets suspended for 5 days for being in a bar with other officers, along with a minor female. So I'm going to read this one to you. It says, you are suspended for 5 working days without pay for violating rules and regulations of the Wauwatosa Police Department. Specifically, on November 8th, 1996, while off duty, you were in the lounge area of the Giuseppe's restaurant. Another off-duty police officer was present, along with several others. One of those in your group was a minor child, age 17. She was allowed in the lounge, despite her parent or guardian not being present. You did nothing to correct this situation, nor did you fulfill your duties as a supervisor and provide supervision to a police officer. Your conduct is in violation of the rules and regulations of the police department. The minor allowed in the lounge also violates Wisconsin state statutes. I hereby suspend you as mentioned above. Please take note of your actions so a future incident of this nature does not reoccur. So here comes all these just goofy, weird, petty, random suspensions. Okay. Now, again, this was signed by Chief Weber. Let's not be confused by this. Okay. There's a reason that all these weird suspensions happen. Let's see this. That's not the right one. So this one. Too many things. All right. John Bolzocevic gets promoted to captain in December 1996. Okay, so now he's moving up the ranks. Remember, at this very same time, there's other officers that are also suing Barry Weber because of lieutenant positions. One of those officers is Gerald Witkowski. And I want to say the other one is Randy Scott. I believe it might have been. Last, we have my favorite cop, James Zalewski. As I said before, Zalewski is by far the most interesting to me and did the greatest amount of change for the Wauwatosa Police Department as well as the city. So you want to know about Tosa modern day right now? It's because of this guy. December 1992, Zalewski applies for grant money for promotional items for civic groups and school groups. This money is going to play a vital role in what happens next. You see in modern day Tosa where Wauwatosa Police Department goes into the schools to promote the police department. This is how that got started. So it says this is from Zalewski to Barry Weber. I applied for and received grant monies from the Department of Justice, with said grant monies currently being used for the purchase of promotional items and supplies. These and other items have been and will be distributed at sessions where the undersigned speaks to civic groups and school groups. In conjunction with the junior liaison officer, we have added 12 members of the Police Reserve Program in 1992. This number represents an increase in membership in 1992 from 38 to the current level of 50. I have scheduled Explorer Post members to work in conjunction with and train with police reserve officers in 1992 for the St. Patrick's Day Parade. The police auction, which we're going to talk about the police auction, the 4th of July festivities, and the Tosa'S Fest event. Now, some of these things still happen today. Okay, some of these events. This police auction, we're gonna talk about tomorrow night. We found out very last minute a very juicy piece of corruption in Tosa. In conjunction with the junior liaison officer, we have provided training in 1992 for the Wauwatosa Police Reserves in the following areas: defensive tactics, weapons handling, shotgun familiarity, 40 cal, Glock transition, communications and dispatcher observation, traffic and crowd control, CPR first aid, high-risk traffic stops, and alcohol awareness intoxilizer operation. So they're starting to get all their breathalyzers. Okay. And then, we got tons of documentation about them doing all the breathalyzer stuff. Now, while Zalewski is being top cop in Wauwatosa, okay, he's still battling ramifications with his buddy Howard Bacon from the MLK Parties and John Cutts. Okay, and that's what this is. The cases are consolidated before the Court on Appeal of decision of the City of Wauwatosa Board of Police and Fire Commissioners. Okay, the significant incidents at issue in this review are as follows. In the spring of 1989, Officer Bacon discharged his gun, right? We read all that. So that's, this is also going on. Okay, this is 91, 92. All right, March 1993, again, mind you, while still undergoing ramifications from the MLK parties, the higher-ups are determining his position back to lieutenant. Okay, that's March 1993. This is more documentation from March of 93. He's a sergeant for 4 years, 9 months. He's a lieutenant for 5 years, 4 months, back to a sergeant for 1 year, 5 months. Okay. So this is all documentation in regards to him being promoted back to a lieutenant. December 6, 1993, the Department of Justice responds in regards to federal grant money. I want you guys to pay attention. Okay. Dear Sir or Madam, this office has recently received a copy of an application for federal assistance concerning the Police Hiring Supplement Program, which was submitted by the Wauwatosa Police Department located within the 5th Congressional District, Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. It is our understanding that the original document was received by your department on or about November 15th, 1993, and that the application will be reviewed in the 3rd round of funding competition. Following a review of the application, it is our recommendation that you consider funding of this program for the Wauwatosa Police Department based upon the following reasons. The budget information and appropriation appears to conform to federal standards and per application guidelines. The request is for 50% of the total salary and benefits over the life of the grant. A strong argument is made in the public safety needs section of the document describing the uniqueness of the city of Wauwatosa well beyond its current population of 49,366. These needs include, most importantly, its proximity to the city of Milwaukee and the tremendous crime problem being dealt with at the present time. The fact that the city inherits on a daily basis in excess of 200,000 employees, plus visitors to major shopping centers, and of course, to the Milwaukee County Medical Complex, which is located in the heart of the city. Additionally, figures appear to indicate that the city of Wauwatosa is showing rising crime rates in several areas which need to be addressed immediately. The strategy section of the report and the report as a whole shows some clear and aggressive responses to the needs of the community and ways to deal with problems presently being encountered. On the whole, the city of Wauwatosa appears to encompass the needs and direction that a community policing program will provide to the area, and certainly falls within the guidelines of the police hiring supplement program. So this is him talking about that Wauwatosa Milwaukee border that's heavily protected. Okay, it's extremely important. So this is December 6th, 1993. This is going to be interesting. December 16th, 10 days later, 1993, the Wauwatosa Police Department creates a position for Zalewski called Community Support Division. This is the start of Wauwatosa's Neighborhood Watch. Next document, May 1994, Zalewski gets a reprimand regarding disparaging comments he made about a police captain. Remember, Zalewski believes he's better than everyone else, including his superiors. So I'm going to read this. You are to be reprimanded for the comments you made on May 11th, 1994 about one of the police captains. Specifically at about 7 a.m., you and a clerk were smoking in the upstairs area. We have an idea who this clerk is. You had a conversation with her and referred to a captain in an offensive manner. Your remarks were overheard by the captain. Approximately 2.5 hours later, when questioned about this, you remembered having a conversation, but not the nature of the words used. Your explanation is not acceptable. You are in violation of Rule 33, showing disrespect for a supervisor. This constitutes insubordination. Please take note of your actions so another violation does not occur in the future. I hereby officially reprimand you. Again, Chief Barry Weber. Barry Weber doesn't suspend anybody. Okay? Barry Weber just writes some bogus documents. Remember, Zalewski doesn't listen to anybody. He's his own guy building this police department. June 1995, the president of the Crime Stoppers, okay, which you can look that up in Wauwatosa, Crime Stoppers, it's a nonprofit organization, sends a letter to Chief Weber. Dear Chief Weber, I am writing to you on behalf of Wauwatosa Crime Stoppers to express our sincere thanks for allowing Sergeant Jim Zalewski to take police department time and speak to the students of Wauwatosa. His presentations were extremely productive. The purpose of Sergeant Zalewski's presentation was to encourage the students to be aware of the part they can play in helping to prevent crime in Wauwatosa. He explained that by calling the WCS phone number with information, students can help curb crime, assist the WPD in solving criminal cases, and do it anonymously and possibly receive a reward. WCS had just completed purchasing glass-enclosed bulletin boards, which were installed in several schools. This was done with full cooperation of Wauwatosa Public School System administration and school principals. On May 22nd, Sergeant Zalewski came with thrilling news that more than 20 calls had been received from students since he started his talks. WCS might receive fewer than one student call in a similar time period. I called you on May 22nd and thanked you at that time. However, I wanted to write this letter and personally thank you and the Wauwatosa Police Department for Sergeant Zalewski's time. He did an extremely effective job in talking to the students. So his programs are not only going from adults, but they're going all the way to students to help monitor this Tosa border and prevent blacks from coming into the city. That's what that means. That's not just speculation. That's exactly what that is. August 1995, Mayor Walsh receives a letter from the Block Watch Captain, Mark Zimmerman. Not the same Zimmerman that we think of. Bravo to Police Chief Barry Weber, the Community Support Unit, Officer Dale Weiss, Sergeant Jim Zalewski, Officer Dennis Slagle, and Janet, and other members of the Wauwatosa Fire Department, Police Department, for their organization and execution of Wauwatosa's first annual National Night Out. Okay, this is August 3rd, 1995, Wauwatosa's National Night Out. Okay, you can Google that. That happens every single year. And that's your neighborhood watch. It was an impressive demonstration of community outreach and a further example of the top-notch, personable professionals we are so fortunate to have serving the people of Wauwatosa. As the block watch captain of the 2200 block of North 65th Street, we celebrated National Night Out with an after-work porch party, followed by a flashlight walk to the Molnar building for the city organized festivities. Our group of over 25 neighbors, both young and old, enthusiastically embraced the activities, demonstrations, information, handouts, and emergency equipment available for tour throughout the evening. The positive comments that marked the walk back to our block that evening would give both city staff and elected officials a warm feeling of satisfaction that there is citizen appreciation for the advancements made in the area of public protection and public relations. I was quick to inform my block that many of the advancements they are witnessing are realized through the commitment and support of the mayor and common council. That too was evident by the presence of our elected officials at Hart Park. Mayor Walsh, as a citizen, block watch captain, a member of the neighborhood steering committee, I applaud this new spirit and community pride that is escalating throughout all areas of Wauwatosa, as long as you are white. All right. These next set of documents, so January 1996 through May of 1996, this is what all these documents are. I'm going the wrong way. Okay, this all talks about this whole Cops Fast grant program, the Neighborhood Watch, all this school stuff. Okay, building up this Crime Stoppers, which again is an organization. So Zalewski is continuing to build his Neighborhood Watch program, anticipating its completion in 1997. Okay, this is about, you hear like Wauwatosa watching city businesses, things like that. That's what all of this is. So this is where all of that stuff first got implemented because of Zalewski. That's why I say he's such an important officer to Tosa. February of 1997, Zalewski and others received sexual harassment training. This is going to be important in tomorrow's discussion. Okay, so all these officers, you got Barry Weber. That one's going to be really important. James Mastrocola, really important. Okay. 1997, they get sexual harassment training. And we've already read the op-ed where people are talking about sexual harassment within the Wauwatosa Police Department. It's kind of funny that back in that very early 1990s, that regular residents were talking about sexual harassment in Wauwatosa PD. And here we are in 1997, still talking about sexual harassment. And tomorrow we're going to be talking about it into 2013. Also, February of 1997, Zalewski gets his promotion to lieutenant again. Okay, only a few months later, Zalewski would leave due to back surgery from an injury he sustained back in 1991. So this is all stemming from those MLK Party things where he did actually suffer a back injury from an incident that happened. But because he's under this mass investigation, he's also claiming this kind of mental distress. Like basically the job caused him to go to these parties, right? And there's a whole series of documents on all of that. So it's just, I'm being a sarcastic prick. So that's what this whole like insurance carrier documents are. Okay. Southeastern Wisconsin Medical. So all of this stuff, this is all in regards to This voluntary sought treatment because of problems which resulted during the course of my employment with the police department. As a direct result, Dr. Luck recommended a leave of absence as partial treatment for the work-related injury. After following Dr. Luck's medical orders, the city, through their workers' compensation administrator, presented evidence to meet their standards for such injuries, blah, 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 blah. Okay, and then he ends up getting this injury claim denied through workers' comp. Okay, all time used was deducted from your sick leave account. Your sick allowance was depleted as of October 6, 1990, with the use of 5.7 hours sick leave and the remaining 2.7 hours deducted from your overtime account. All additional hours will be deducted from your overtime account, leaving you with a negative balance. Per Mr. Peter Petrol, Director of Personnel, your negative overtime account may not exceed 24 hours. Okay, so there's this whole big giant thing. Okay. Again, interesting that the back injury, workman's comp, and time off all happened during the MLK Party investigations. That seems very convenient to me. Some other interesting things about Zalewski during the 1990s. So Wauwatosa Police Department ends up getting a renovation, which is what we know Tosa PD to be today. During this time, with the importance of computers entering departments and the squad cars, Zalewski ends up going back to school to get computer training. He implements the incorporation and training of the squad computers, as well as after the renovation, he completely revamps the entire evidence room. With the amount of tangible evidence, Zalewski implements categorizing evidence in the computer system to free up room in the evidence area. In May of 2000, Zalewski puts in his retirement letter that his last day will be June 9th, 2000. Okay, December 2011, Weber ends up writing a letter regarding Zalewski's employment. This is to somebody. One source that I spoke with who held a top rank within Wauwatosa Police Department claims that there were other officers who attended the MLK parties that were not listed nor punished. Those names included, and this is from a source, Gerald Witkowski, Dominic Leone, who became the president of the Police and Fire Commission, Greg Nauman, according to one source, used to refer to black individuals who were arrested as coal. A common phrase he would use when black subjects were in the back of the squad car was, "We have a car full of coal coming in." Nauman is now a pastor at the Fairview Evangelical Lutheran Church in Milwaukee, and also possibly Dennis Slagle. One point that is interesting regarding Dennis Slagle, which makes his possible attendance more plausible, his sister Peggy was married to Mark Tebow. Tebow just recently passed away 2 months ago. Chief Weber in the city of Wauwatosa and the Police and Fire Commission claim that there were no lingering effects from the MLK parties, and there is no racism within the Wauwatosa Police Department. One source claims that over the years through the 90s and mid-2000s, the old regime would continue to make jokes about the MLK parties and frequently pass around pictures that were taken during those parties. Tomorrow's episode will discuss the real reason behind the officer promotions, finish off their careers, the truth behind critical suspensions and how they get covered up, who trained modern-day Tosa cops, Chief Barry Weber's deception in hiding crimes. We're going to talk about the whites for Wauwatosa and who's behind that, because apparently Wauwatosa PD can't solve that crime. The truth behind Detective Robin Schumacher's felony conviction, the truth behind Officer Jen Sabina's murder, and some truth behind a clerk named Mark Finken's suicide. So at this time, I'll open it up to any questions you may have. I know this went a little bit longer than yesterday's. A lot to unpack there. But any questions that you guys have, from anything we've talked about yesterday, today, Again, because there's so much detail regarding all of this, I broke it up into these kind of multiple episodes. So a lot to unpack. Today was a little heavier than yesterday's. Again, Never Stop Media has no corporate sponsors that pay us every week. So if you'd like to help contribute, again, most of those monies go towards running the company, paying for open records requests, the amount of time it takes to do all this stuff. We went through 6,000 documents to get where we are today, and we're still not done. There's still, we only have 5 or 6 of the officers' files out of the 13, so we're still missing some. That's going to take some more stuff. Jay Anderson says this police station is the Klan. Yes, Mr. Anderson, I definitely agree. I don't believe, with everything that I've read in all of these documents and talking to, again, journalists that were writing articles back at the time, during that time, witnesses, we've talked to law enforcement that was willing to speak with us. Some, we got told to fuck off. But we did get some others that were willing to speak with us. Speak with us. Some other civilians that were in Tosa at the time. We talked to a lot of people to kind of bring, what we heard, when Kim Motley kind of first brought all this out, and we all kind of jumped on it. Me, Isaiah, some other, like the Journal Sentinel, like everyone kind of jumped on these things. There's we talk about the sexual harassment, we talk about the intimidation and the threats and all this, that's being put towards other officers, civilians that work there. And tomorrow we're really going to get into that. And if you guys think so too, is really disturbing. For me, I think tomorrow is the most disturbing because it shows the level in which this department goes in order to protect the image. And I keep saying that word, and that's really what this is about. So we're going to talk about why these officers end up getting promotions. It's kind of both good and bad, the reasons behind it. But tomorrow might be a little difficult for you and Mrs. Anderson to listen to. There's some things that a source had told us regarding how investigations work and how the narrative gets put out. So tomorrow's pretty disturbing. I mean, I definitely recommend you guys kind of unpack all this, from tonight. But yeah, this claim that, Weber says that Tosa had no lingering effects when it comes to racism. I mean, he's making these claims like literally the minute he first comes into the department, in the middle of this scandal and this controversy, right? That these guys all get suspended for having these racist parties. And, we read what this stuff says, what the flyers say. And that was really uncomfortable for me to read. I'm not going to lie. I've been reading it, and I've been sitting here and I'm like reading my thing. And then tonight reading it in front of everybody, it was really uncomfortable. It was kind of nice to know that there's at least some residents in Tosa that were outraged. We did put a call into some other people. I'm going to tell you guys now, there's some other people that we haven't talked to, that we have reached out to, and we're hoping to get a call back. Some of the stuff too, like, I mean, with a lot of names that are involved, people that, I mean, when I talk about like sitting here doing investigative work, like I'm literally sitting here on the computer. I'm researching. I'm calling. We've been fortunate enough to have some people kind of pick us up, drive us to some locations to verify, addresses, knocking on doors, ambushing people, basically, trying to talk to them, see if they'll answer questions, tell us some insights. And that's how we got some of the stuff that has not been pushed through corporate media. That's how we've gotten some of these juicy details. None of the articles written ever discussed these guys ever wearing, fake Afro wigs and going to Hoyt Park and swimming in that pool. But one witness, doesn't matter why they're a witness, but one witness, says that those things happen. It's just weird. But yeah, so that's what I mean, and then it's 6,000 documents that were literally, I'm sitting here reading through 6,000 documents on top of like dealing with Kenosha bullshit and all this other stuff. And then, spending hours, my back is killing me. Just, this chair, I need a new computer chair. That's what I need. So, but yeah, and again, it's just, we don't have everybody's file. We want everyone's file. I know these little episode things here, they're going to be viewed by some people. And, I encourage, anyone that was there at the time, during the Martin Luther King Day parties, please come talk to me. I don't have to say your name and who you are and position and any of that. I'll talk to you off the record. I want to see pictures. I want to see the videos that were taken. I know these things still exist. I want to see the old flyers. I want to know exactly what happened. I don't care who they are. Come talk to us. We have lists of civilian clerks and Tosa police officers that were fucked with heavily. Like how you saw, we detailed out what, John Cutts had to deal with. There's officers that dealt with the same thing. There was a Tosa officer that, kind of similar to Cutts, just the department's whipping boy. They used to fuck with him all the time. So we kind of have this list of people where under Weber, this is the norm in Wauwatosa PD. And there's so many of these things that are done to protect this image of Wauwatosa. And it's mind blowing to me. Jill says, thanks, Kev. You really did some amazing uncovering of vile practices. Cash App to you. Thanks, Jill. I appreciate the donation. Breezy, thank you, Kev, for getting this out there. It's been really informative and enlightening. I'm anticipating what you're going to bring us tomorrow. Tomorrow's a box of fuck shit. That's what tomorrow is. What else? Any other questions? We'll spend a little time answering some questions. Go through some comments. What do you guys think so far? Is this stuff interesting to you? These are the types of investigations that I like doing. That's why, like, when it comes to Kenosha, I've spent 2 years on Kenosha. I have not stopped. And there's, we've detailed this in other episodes, other like live streams where we're just hanging out, chilling, talking to you guys. We have 27 more departments that we need to file open records requests on. I'm constantly having conversation, regarding Kenosha. This Wauwatosa stuff, I received a document, a 20-page document, which we're going to go through tomorrow. A 20-page document back in January of 2021. And that document, I'm going to be honest with you, that document really fucked me up, reading that. And literally from the moment I got that document, I have been like just on this crusade when it comes to Wauwatosa. And when we read the document tomorrow, I haven't decided if I'm going to read the entire thing or if I'm just going to highlight portions. Right now, I kind of want to read the entire thing because I want you guys to really feel it. But at the same time, I might just highlight certain things. And this is into 2013, okay, going into 2015. So, you know, some incidents stemming in 2012. We'll talk about tomorrow. There's kind of this changing of the guard, right? All these guys with these MLK parties, and we'll talk about this tomorrow, but these guys all become the upper echelon of Wauwatosa PD. These are the people that are training everybody. So all those people that you see now in Tosa Command were trained by these lunatics. So these are the kinds of investigations that I like. This is why, like, I don't just sit and write articles every 5 minutes and pump out material, and I'm not covering every single topic, and I don't give a shit about this war. I really don't care. I'm not going to feel sorry for Nazis and white nationalists that I've been terrorized by for fucking 2 years. I don't really care. It's horrible that people are dying, and some of the shit I read today about little kids and whatever, it's obviously horrible. But we have a fight here that needs to be fought, right? We have a box of crazy going on in our own state, and this stuff, and I want you guys, regardless of where you're watching this from or where this gets shared, understand that these things, this is not specific to Wisconsin. This is not specific to Wauwatosa Police Department. Some of these things, now, while another department may not be having these blackface parties, some of these things that we're talking about, when it comes to medals, when it comes to suspensions, when it comes to all this stuff, these very same things are happening in those departments around the country. They are, and I put emphasis on certain words when I'm reading this, and I really hope you guys are picking up on some of that stuff, especially you activists that are out there that that are trying to incite change. I think there's key components that are, and opportunities that are being missed, things that need to be gone after. When I write an article, I'm not just writing an article for my health. Especially like with the read the article on the website. The insurance article. I keep forgetting my banner as I talk. It's so hard trying to change all this shit. I'm playing with 2 phones, operating the computer. It's crazy. Anyway, so that's the website, Never.Stop.Voices.com. There's tons of articles up there. We talked about like Joseph Mensa. We talked about the Jay Anderson shooting a little bit in the beginning. There's several articles on the website about that. We live streamed, not the first day, but we live streamed all the rest of the hearings. That's up on the channel. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of exclusive videos that are up on the channel. Nobody else has these videos, right? Nobody else is putting these videos out. And by getting this stuff, we've been able to expose a lot of shenanigans, by law enforcement. And, especially when it comes to Kenosha. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours, body cam videos from inside of the Bearcats. Who has that? Nobody has that. So, we put a lot of work in. I put a lot of work in doing this stuff. And, we rely very heavily on the viewer to help with contributions so we can keep doing this stuff. But at the same time, for like the protesters and then just people that are not protesters that, stumble upon some type of box of crazy, it's you guys that give us the tips, where we can be like, oh, that sounds super sketchy, and and we can go investigate some stuff. So What else? What other comments and things do you guys want to? Questions? Anybody have any questions? Really not a lot of questions yesterday or today. I'm kind of surprised by that. I know it's a lot to unpack. I mean, believe me, it was a lot to unpack for me. And then trying to like word this stuff in some sort of semblance of make sense, kind of following this timeline. No questions by anybody? We're streaming on 2 platforms right now. No questions. Mr. Anderson says it's the truth. Yeah, unfortunately, it's the truth. Unfortunately. Pretty thorough. So myself personally, Breezy has no questions. Remember, there's pinned link if you guys do want to contribute. There's some pinned links on Facebook and on YouTube. I don't know if I'll stream on Facebook tomorrow. It didn't really help. All right, boss. Sorry. The officer Sabina, is that the one that got killed by some gang? No, Officer Jen Sabina was murdered by her husband. So Officer Sabina was a Wauwatosa police officer. She's on the force for about 2 years. And her husband, also a Wauwatosa police officer, murdered her. So we are going to talk about that tomorrow. If you guys want, tonight when we're done, jump on the old Googler and type in Jen Sabina, Sebena, Wauwatosa, and read those bullshit articles that went out. And then tomorrow we'll tell you what really happened. So tomorrow's the day I'm most afraid of. Tomorrow I'm expecting a sniper bullet to come right through that back door window. Tomorrow's going to be a lot to unpack. I mean, I'll tell you now, tomorrow, for me, I think tomorrow's the scariest. I think it's the most uncomfortable. I think it's the most juicy, especially for like an investigative journalist. It's definitely juicy tomorrow's episode. And like I said, I think I will do another episode just because we did happen to get somebody else's personnel file. And it was kind of last minute, and I'm still going through it. These files are like 700 pages a piece, so it's a lot. So it may not be 4 days in a row. I might wait a few days and come back with an episode 4. But yeah, I mean, tomorrow, when we're talking about corruption, this is the height of the corruption. This is the worst that it gets. So, and, again, with that word image. So, and the Whites for Wauwatosa, that group, you guys can Google that. Whites for Wauwatosa. We're going to talk about that. But that was some shenanigans that happened last year. So it's just, this ridiculousness that Weber claimed that, there's no lingering effects of racism in Wauwatosa. He's out of his fucking mind. You guys that have kind of followed, especially when we had the company Facebook page before, lunatics attacked that and got that permanently removed. How many protests did I film with People's Revolution? And And then you guys watched going from Milwaukee, going into Wauwatosa, that border just immediately heavily protected. The crazy people that would come out. Now thankfully with a lot of articles that Isaiah put out, a lot of these things that Kim Motley is doing still, TPR and things that they would expose, families speaking out like the Andersons, the Coles, it really changed a lot of people in Wauwatosa. And I know we were seeing a lot more people that were coming out and being in support. There's a couple of groups, activist groups now in Wauwatosa. A lot of white people, which is kind of funny. But they're fed up. They got exposed to all these things and said, no, that's not happening. And it's kind of one of those things where like Weber, kind of looks at him and is like, well, I don't understand what the problem is. You didn't have a problem with any of this before, and the response is like, well, we didn't know you were doing this. This is unacceptable. So, but yeah, and definitely because we are only on one platform, we're only on YouTube. I really do not stream from my personal account. I did today, just try to get some more people, but that's where we really need you guys to take these videos and post them onto your Facebook pages and share them out to all your friends, any groups that you're part of, because it really helps bring more exposure to us, to our platform, so that these topics that we're discussing can really get out there. So, and same thing with the articles. If we share an article and it comes across your way, please share that stuff. All of that stuff helps. Not only does it spread the word, but when it comes to algorithms and all this nonsense, it helps our stuff get become more visible. Things get shared out more and recommended, and we need that, especially because we've shut down most of our social media platforms and we're permanently removed from Facebook. Mm-hmm. So what else? Any other comments, questions, anything? I might come back on in like half an hour, like at 10, just to do like a regular BS stream. We haven't done those in a while because I've been so fixated on this. So I might do that. Kind of regular broadcasting. But for those lurking in the distance over on YouTube, you lurkers have any comments? Want to say anything? People screen recording me saying naughty words. Watch, that'll be clipped. I'm telling you right now, that'll be clipped. It'll be up on somebody's YouTube channel. It'll be a 30-second clip of me saying naughty things. No other comments, questions, anything? All right, I'm gonna end this then. Like I said, I may or may not come back in like half an hour. Just do kind of a BS stream. So we'll see. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Again, remember tomorrow, 7 p.m., episode 3, the final episode, 3-part series. It's going to be super, super juicy. So we're kind of done as far as most of like the personnel files and articles and things like that. So not as much in the visual category, but we will be showing some documents for sure. Yep, no worries, Breezy. Do your thing. Thanks, Jill. I'll see you. All right, guys. Later.